Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. This is another message for my friends and colleagues in the career and vocational employment services field. And I hope you all had a great Easter holiday and ready to dig in now, huh? Getting back to work. So, for those of you who may not have looked at some of my other videos, my name is John Solano. I've been a professional counselor for 30 years, and I've worn a lot of different hats. Started off my career as an addictions counselor, working in the criminal justice system, and then in divorce and child custody issues, doing chemical dependency assessments and for lawyers and judges, and going in and doing testimony and things of that nature. One of the things that I really got interested in my, having started my career as an addictions counselor is one of the 12-step model, and within that they talked about saying that it's a disease model but a spiritual program. And so I got very interested in that spiritual program piece, and so most of my education has been, in addition to like traditional psychology, I've also been a student of Jungian psychology, transpersonal psychologies, and depth psychologies, mythology, and things. Why? Well, because I really wanted to understand what was going on in the human heart, and how I could best support people in making a transformation, maybe even more than a change. I don't know about you, but I guess one of the things that I became very aware of early in my life, which brought me into the field of psychology, is that I became aware of the suffering that was going on in the world. And I wanted to do something about that. And pretty much as soon as I could, but it wasn't just about as soon as I could, like how could I also make the biggest possible difference out there? And hence my studies of spirituality, wisdom teachings, and etc. That being the case, though, one of the things that I needed to do in my life, and what most of us have needed to do, is to find a job, get back to work. And so what I discovered, of course, in my own studies, was that there was some traumas and things that I had experienced in my life that were causing me to not be effective and not be successful in obtaining the kind of employment that I wanted to. And so I thank God that I was, on the path of learning and looking more deeply into myself to figure out what was getting in the way. And one of my teachers once told me, John, you know what? What you're here to learn, you're here to teach. What you're here to learn, you're here to teach. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, right. But then I just thought, okay, I'm going to try it out. Because he also said, John, in any time, there's at least 200 sets of eyes on you, watching how you get through certain obstacles in life. And again, I thought, well, that's ridiculous. 200? I could probably name like a handful, of people who watch me or whatever to see how I'm doing in life. But I got to thinking about it more and more. I thought, that's not too far-fetched. And wouldn't it be wonderful if the only thing that I really needed to do was to share with people what I've already learned? And so as I was going through my journey around finding employment and the challenges that I was having with it, I began to turn around and share what I discovered with other people. Now, like a lot of you, either personally or maybe professionally, you probably dealt with people like me, or maybe you're a person like me. I had 2 degrees already, right? But I was unemployed. And in fact, I ended up on income assistance for 2 years. One of the things that I was experiencing during those periods of time too was that I had recently immigrated to Canada. This was back in the 90s. Concurrently, I was experiencing high levels of anxiety and even panic attacks. And so I was in and out of the hospital on a number of occasions, you know, getting x-rays and everything because the way the stress and the anxiety affected my body. And of course, doctors would always say, there's nothing wrong with you, John. There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. Can you imagine that? You know, I'm sure maybe you've had that experience. You know darn well there's something going on, but you know, everybody else from the outside looks at you and thinks, what's wrong with this guy? Got a couple degrees, you know, should have no problem finding employment. So this is a little bit more of the landscape that I had to deal with back in the 90s. And like I said, at the same time, though, thank God I was seeking wisdom and spending time in healing communities and spending time with wisdom teachers. And I started to catch on to a few things. And so then my heart, if you will, got on fire for wanting to share this with other people. And so I developed this whole philosophy called the empowerment philosophy. It's a framework. It's a way of seeing things. I've also been a baseball player and a baseball coach for most of my life, and so I can appreciate the importance of a position that somebody takes. And even to this day, 30 years down the road, I have this appreciation. See, people get stuck in life a lot of times because of the position they've taken. Because wherever somebody has taken up a position, they also get a view. So if people are stuck, in other words, they can't see their way through something, or they're seeing something scary, or they're seeing, you know, they're feeling hopeless or helpless or whatever it is, I know it's because of the position that they've taken up. So the empowerment philosophy, first and foremost, offers somebody a vision, offers somebody a different position. Einstein said you can never solve a problem in the same paradigm in which it was created. We've got to move to a different paradigm here. So I began to put this all together. And then in addition to that, I came up with what's called the integrity approach. The integrity approach basically says is that if your personal scoreboard or your family scoreboard or your agency scoreboard is not looking good, in other words, you're getting your butt kicked here, and maybe season after season after season, guess what? It means, ultimately, that you're no longer practicing the fundamentals. I begin to see that. In life, everything has fundamentals. Whether it be mental health, physical health, business, doesn't matter what it is, marriage, being a parent, everything has fundamentals, a fundamental set of skills and attitudes, etc. And if you played sports, you know that no matter how good you get, no matter how much money you're making, you always need to practice the fundamentals. Everything comes from the fundamentals, the basic foundation. And when people drift away from that foundation, when people drift away from those fundamentals, that's when the scoreboard starts to look terrible. So I started to put a lot of these ideas together, the integrity approach. Integrity approach basically says, if your life isn't going well, you're disconnected from the fundamentals of who you really are. That's what integrity is. Integrity really is just only one thing. That's being true to yourself. That's keeping your word. That's being true to your core virtues, your core convictions. Now, just because we know what the right thing to do is doesn't mean we have to do it. As human beings, we have this thing called free will. And there are a lot of reasons why we don't do what we know we should do. And one of the things that throws us off, if you will, can be traumatic events that happen in our lives. And so, like I said, in my situation, I had experienced traumatic events in my life, and they were showing up in my physical health and relational health, but also in my areas of employment. And so I began to connect some of the pieces of the puzzle, and I began to resolve some of this for myself, and my career took off. I got back on track, if you will. And I put this together in this integrity model, so the empowerment philosophy, integrity model. Now, because a lot of it has to do with the traumatic experiences people have experienced in life, it's also trauma-informed. So I like to call it a trauma-informed, empowerment-focused idea, and within that, there's the integrity approach. And I've been excited about this. I've been speaking at conferences. I've been doing trainings for other facilitators since 1993 now. Remember what my teacher said, John, what you're here to learn, you're here to teach. So I started to teach that. And lo and behold, I wasn't the only one experiencing, if you will, challenges in different life areas, and one of those areas being employment. And it was related to traumatic experiences that people have had. So as I began to follow that line of logic for some time, I began to see that a lot of people, if not everybody, but a lot of people who are having real challenges in seeking, obtaining, holding on to employment or getting a career off the ground or what have you, actually have trauma in their history. So also as part of, if you will, my heart's desire, I wanted to work with people who, were really hurting. And so I have primarily worked with, over the last 30 years, populations of people that we might call at risk. And so I began to bring this model that I put together to the public, if you will, and I began to facilitate life skills groups in employment agencies that were working with at-risk populations. And so I started doing that as a contractor, and then lo and behold, I was hired by a large organization in the British Columbia, Vancouver area. And then that's when things really took off, because I got to be the supervisor of the program, and I got to implement the entire empowerment philosophy and integrity model into what became known as the Baristas Youth Skills Link program. So like many other employability skills programs, same model, traditional model. You do some life skills up front, and then your participants either do like an internship or a practicum or whatever. In this case, this was a hugely unique, one-of-a-kind program that was actually successful in partnering with Starbucks Coffee Canada. And for a lot of reasons, that partnership worked out real well. But just to say, the idea of the program, from my perspective, was to bring in this idea that the reason these young people were experiencing challenges when it came to employment and other life areas, such as relationships and family areas, and also school, because none of them were going to school. These were all teenagers. They'd all gotten in lots of trouble and dropped out. They all had addiction issues and mental health issues and all the things that you can think of that somebody who would be considered at risk would have. And so I was able to implement this whole entire curriculum that I devised into that life skills component. Well, guess what? Lo and behold, not only did we hit our targets, but we hit our targets well in advance. And our employment rates were just skyrocketed. And in 2004, my team and I received the highest award possible in British Columbia, called the BC Career Management Association Team Award of Excellence. That was in 2004. And then we began to receive all sorts of requests for replication. So we got letters from Australia, from the United States, other places, who they just heard about our program. And there was all sorts of other local awards and recognition that the program got. But the vision for the program was a trauma-informed empowerment focus, meaning that if you understand the impact of trauma on employment, then you also understand how important it is to begin to illuminate and disintegrate the trauma. It's kind of like if you're trying to get from point A to point B in a car and you've got the foot on the brake and you're wondering why things are going so slow. So here you are, you're all motivated and you're wanting to get over to point B, and you start to get frustrated because things are going so slow. But the obvious thing is that you've got your foot on the brake. That's what trauma is like. So people can say consciously that they want to move forward, but actually for a lot of different reasons, they've got their foot on the brake. Primary reason, one could say, there's lots of different ways this can look. And that's why people do real well to implement a lot of these workshops, because not only do the participants learn about the dynamics of of trauma, entitlement, and indulgence, but staff do too. This day and age, really, you're only hearing half of the story. When we talk about trauma, pretty much the only story you're going to hear from the community or from other professionals in it is the victim story. There's more to the story than that. There's other stories available. There's 2 more stories. And if you bring some of my workshops in, I would love to share that with you. But this is where the transpersonal psychology comes in, the depth psychology, where you get to see deeper into this. And I know some people might say, well, you're crazy, John. There's only one story. It's about being hurt and victimized. I hear you. I understand why you'd be coming from that direction. But you know what? My results don't lie. Team Award of Excellence, international recognition, a lot of different awards and things. I mean, lives transformed, results, employment results gotten faster, more comprehensively than ever before gotten. I mean, again, that's why I like the scoreboard, because the scoreboard never lies. And so I had an opportunity to test this out for 7 years. And that was just in the Baristas program. I did it, for a year before that in a youth community project, Skills Link program. I did it before that for about another year in what was called Blade Runners. Some of you might be familiar with the old Blade Runners program. Everywhere I took this philosophy, people were saying, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, you were able to do this, not only get the employment results, but transform people's character. People were, young people, at-risk youth were, their addictions were slowing down. Their mental health was returning. They were conducting themselves like citizens, rather than being rude in public and all sorts of stuff. So, that's the bottom line. But let me ask you a few questions. I mean, if you're an employment service provider, like, if you could somehow implement something into your programming that at the same time you're getting employment results, in fact, getting them faster and more comprehensively than you would have normally, if you could also help your clients kind of become aware of and heal traumatic events in their histories, would you do that? Is that something you'd want to do? Like, if you could help men and women and spouses and families heal from generations of pain and suffering, would you want to do that? If you could help somebody or some family get free of the suffering caused by addiction, would you do that? Mental health is another big issue, right? Would you like to be on the cutting edge of helping people reduce their anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation? If you could do that as part of your employment services programs, would you do it? And would you do it if you could at the same time exceed your goals, your contracted goals? Like, wouldn't that be even more exciting? So, it just gets better from there. Then you start getting, people want to start looking at what you're doing over there. You start getting attention locally. You start getting attention across BC and across Canada. And pretty soon, somebody from the US is on your program. Pretty soon, again, Australia is knocking on your door. You're speaking at conferences. You're sharing with people. You're doing exactly what your heart's desire is, which is to help the people that you're working with heal at the most deepest levels. And you're doing it through 2 of the most important aspects of a person's life: career and employment. In my book, that's why I love the Baristas program, because there's no better, vehicle for that. Everybody has to work, right? So why not offer a few of these workshops along with it? Because you, the professional, from where you're standing, that life is hard and people have been traumatized. That there's a connection between trauma that people experience and employment success or the lack of success. So, you can continue to use some of the traditional approaches, but I say deepen your approach. Like I said, because right now we're in the midst of an opioid epidemic in which people are dying. Right now, society is very focused on ACEs, which is the adverse childhood experiences. In other words, trauma that people experience in life. Being able to create a program where those two things are being addressed at the same time that employability services are being offered is cutting edge. And no one can say, hey, this can't be done. That's too much to do. No, we've already done it. It's already been done. It's already been seen. I did 2 or 3 presentations at different conferences on this. People know about it. It can be done. It can be done actually quite easily, depending on to what degree, you guys want to buy into it. There can be, a couple of workshops installed. There can be ways that you interview people and using interview tools that help people kind of get on board with this, remember, the foundation. Or you can create an entire culture of integrity. Get the staff on board with it. I would want everybody, on your staff, everybody in the organization, but everybody at least who's in your department, your employment services, I would want everybody to have this experience. I would administer the different tools and begin to share these ideas. So eventually what happens is that people start to learn the language and they start to learn the processes and the different policies, if you will. So it becomes fluid. So your entire department becomes a culture. It becomes a culture of integrity. And it's just an empowering culture. So, if this is exciting, this is completely doable. Give me a call, shoot me an email, and we'll start talking. We'll see if this is something that you want to move forward on. And I just know that if you did, it would be the cutting edge for you. It would be you would be, and your programming would be the cutting edge in the community. It just works that way. When you're doing the right thing, it works. So yeah, shoot me an email at quest792@gmail.com. That's QUEST 792@gmail.com. And you can phone me at 604-229-0328. 604-229-0328. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn, send me an invite. We'll join each other's network, and you can see all the different videos and articles that I've posted there also, in addition to what's on my YouTube channel. And all that stuff is free. So, there's a lot of teaching material there that's, I just put out there for you to use. So, okay, let's move this idea forward and get on with the business of fulfilling our heart's desire. You guys take care.